to episode 364 of Cinematary. I'm your host, Zach Dennis, and I'm joined today by Grace Winburn. Grace, welcome back.
Hi, thank you so much for having me back. I'm really glad to be here.
So, unfortunately, I don't know, maybe unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know how you want to view it, but it's just going to be Grace and I today. Logan Kinney was supposed to join us, but COVID prick number 2 got him a little under the weather, so this is where we're at.
Pour one out for him. You should pour out your PBR for him. That's respectful.
Exactly. We're pouring one out for Logan today, but we got a nice little episode going on here. We're going to be continuing our Young Critics Watch Old Movies series with 1957's Sweet Smell of Success. And if you head over to cinematary.com, we got a new review going up on Monday from Logan Kinney about the Fast and Furious series. But we also got reviews of Pig, which I just watched this past week and was pretty good. Space Jam: A New Legacy, which I watched and reviewed, and it's not good. Not good at all. And we have Andrew's review of All Light Everywhere. So head over to cinematary.com and check it out. But let's go ahead and jump into movies that we saw this week, and I kick us off, Grace. I saw a couple new releases, but trying to get into the new stuff. The first one, real quickly, I was going to talk about was the Suicide Squad, which is the latest from James Gunn, who did...
From the beautiful, dark, twisted mind of James Gunn.
Sure. I guess if you'd like to classify it that way. I mean, he knows how to, have blood and swear, so I guess that's twisted.
The cool stuff.
Yeah.
Before I go into the movie, I ask how many blood and how many swears, and there's a threshold, and if that movie doesn't have it, then I don't know if I'm gonna watch it.
I mean, it has it. I don't know if it's, I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. That's the kind of movie, that's what I'm looking for.
Well, the Suicide Squad, so James Gunn, for those who are don't know, he's done the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. He did the movie Super. But this came out of that whole thing where he was canceled and kicked out of Marvel, and then he got the job to do this movie, and then he got uncanceled, and he's back at Marvel, and now he's saying stupid stuff online about Martin Scorsese. So that's his life at the moment. And he has bleach white hair. It's just he's doing a whole thing. But this one, it's like a kind of pseudo. A sequel, but not a sequel, of the Suicide Squad movie from 2016. It brings back a couple of the characters, like Harley Quinn, who's played by Margot Robbie. Joel Kinnaman's character, who is Rick Flag, is in this. Jai Courtney's character is in this. He was in the original one, and I think that's mostly it. They've replaced Will Smith with Idris Elba, but they're not the same character. It's just another hot, charismatic black guy. So, I mean, honestly, I picked Idris Elba over Will Smith, but that's just me.
I do like him.
He's pretty great.
He's very likable. He's very handsome.
Yeah, he was big in the news this week. I mean, he's going to be in the Sonic the Hedgehog movie, the sequel.
Knuckles,
he's going to be
right?
Knuckles. Yeah, it's big Idris Elba week, guys.
It's a good day to be Idris Elba.
It is. I'll cop. I do both Guardians of the Galaxy movies. James Gunn, as a person, he's kind of annoying. He just likes to hear himself talk, so that's whatever. I mean, the movies themselves are fine. The downside with this, though, and I saw somebody, I can't remember if it was on Letterboxd or they tweeted this, but they were like, oh, cool, James Gunn has made the same movie 3 times in a row. And it's kind of true. It's a bunch of misfit characters. You have one big CGI animal thing, so you have this one character that's voiced by Sylvester Stallone named King Shark, which is just this giant ass shark. He's pretty much the Groot character of this, and I think so. This one, I think the kind of separating factor between them. Oh, and John Cena is in this movie as well. I forgot to mention John Cena. The separating factor, though, between like this and the Guardians movies is like the Guardians movies are like the kind of rebellious kids of like the Marvel universe, I guess you could say, but it's still very tame because it's like under Disney. And so it's like you can be a little rebellious, but there's only like so much of a limit. And the Suicide Squad seems like, you know, James Gunn doing a lot of like the humor and the different characters, the kind of quirky, the character quirks and things like that. And that's something that he does do well. Like he does like give like all of these kind of characters, especially this kind of second team. So you have these two teams. The first team, you know, not to spoil much, but like you kind of have these two teams doing these two missions, and one of them does not go well, and one of them succeeds. But he does a good job of at least like giving providing enough characterization for these people. Like it's like he goes around and like you get a sense of who all these people are. They each kind of get a little bit of a moment. It works or it doesn't work. I'm not saying that it's perfect every time, but I think he does do a good job of like at least spreading the wealth and understanding that you're making a movie with like this giant cast, and you kind of want to at least have every character be as moderately memorable as they can be. But I think also that kind of bogs him down, and at the same time, so this is kind of like he's taking like the Guardians of the Galaxy model of like we have this kind of, you know, scrupulous group of people who are all like bad, you know, villains, and they're all going to be doing this mission, and if they die, whatever. If they succeed, perfect. But and so I think that the kind of separating factor between like a Marvel movie and this movie is that he gets to like have like a very gruesome blood in like ripping people apart, and, you know, people getting shot, which is not something you would see in a Marvel movie. So like there's, you know, some of the king shark is like literally like eating people. There's a lot of like people getting like shot and crushed and like blood gushing everywhere. And I guess that's like the kind of appeal, because it's like you're not Marvel, you know, Disney Marvel is not going to let you ever do that. And so it's kind of like, let's take Guardians of the Galaxy, but then add much more swearing and a lot more blood. It also has like this kind of half-baked like American imperialism plot to it, where like the whole mission is centered around going to this remote Latin American island, and
does it have a government that needs help?
It has this, you know, dictator president that the United States doesn't like, you know, the U.S. government doesn't like. And so, but the main focus of it is to go, because they have this super secret experiment that, you know, if it's put in the wrong hands, it's gonna be a problem. And so I don't know, it's just like this weird, like, so then when you find out like in the movie like what the experiment is and what it can do, it like becomes this whole thing where it's like, even though this Latin American country was like housing it, actually all of this was funded by the U.S. government. And you're like, yeah, okay, good, yeah, good for you, James Gunn. Like you read some literature, probably Jordan Peterson sounds more like kind of his speed. So I'm just like, congratulations, you read some stuff. I don't know. I kind of got bored with this. It's like 2 hours and 20 minutes long. It doesn't really move. It's super slow for the first 40 minutes as it like introduces all these people and like has to like, you know, spend time with them. And then when it finally gears up into like the mission of like, this is the goal, it gets a little bit better, but I don't know. I think my mileage kind of varies with this James Gunn product, and I'm not sure. I don't know. I think that they just kind of need to bury the whole conceit of this, you know, like I was thinking about it. So this movie's pretty much just ripping off The Dirty Dozen, where you kind of have, you know, you have like this all these terrible people that you're not supposed to be rooting for, who are just going on this suicide mission. And I think that the interesting thing, I'm not a giant fan of the Dirty Dozen either, but like there's something about how like those characters are played. Like all of these characters are supposed to be villains, but they're played because of like the way that they joke and the way that they're acting, that even though they're bad guys or bad people, you're supposed to like them, you know, like you're supposed to like all of these people. And I think it's like compared to like the Dirty Dozen, where I think you kind of like them to a degree because like John Cassavetes is charming and you know, like Lee Marvin is entertaining to watch. Yeah. But at the same time, you don't like them. Like one of the characters is like a rapist. Like it's not like you're supposed to like him. They're all like detestable people, and they like continuously are detestable. And so that's like what makes it a difficult watch, because you just you're stuck with these detestable people, and it's like you have these detestable people and you have Nazis. So which one do you like? Do you like the rapist and the murderers and the people over there, or do you like the Nazis? And in this one, it kind of just it's not as like morally ambiguous as that. It's mainly like, do you like Margot Robbie and John Cena and Idris Elba and a giant ass shark that talks, you know, in kind of like broken words, or do you like, you know, the bad evil government, you know? And so I don't know. I don't think it's not as like nuanced and clever as it kind of wants to be, but. So I don't know. I don't know if I'd recommend it. I guess if you have HBO Max, you can watch it on that.
I do, but I haven't seen the first Suicide Squad. I know you're saying that I don't need to see it to watch this, but I don't have much interest.
Yeah, no, I don't mean it's just kind of. I don't know what to do with it. It's just I would not go and risk your life in the COVID surge right now to go to a movie theater to watch this movie.
You know what I did when I risked my life to go see a movie in COVID times? I saw New Mutants. Like, not to like...
Was that worth it?
No, I'm just saying, like... it really wasn't.
It wasn't worth it?
I didn't feel like it was, but I was like, wow, I'm really glad that I risked my life to...
Watch a shitty X-Men movie?
Yeah! That, like, I don't know why I thought it was supposed to be scary, and then it, like, wasn't scary. It was like I felt like I had missed something. I know there were rewrites, and then it was very like then the fun quote of like, which wolf in me, like, oh, the one you feed, like that was the what is it, the fable, this Native American fable. It's like inside of you there are two wolves, good and bad, and like which one will I be? Like the one that you feed. Like, oh, that was like the bookend to the movie. Like, these kids aren't bad, they're like being used as weapons.
They're just, you know, they're feeding the bad wolf, you know?
Yeah, and like it didn't feel as like you know, nuanced as they, you know, to echo what you said, and then but also just like funny little like, yeah, I risked my life for for COVID, and all I saw was new mutants.
They should give you that on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Well, Suicide Squad, it's in theaters, but I would not recommend going to that. Just find HBO Max or steal somebody's login or something. So, the next thing I saw, I don't have too much to say about it, but I saw the new Leos Cara movie, Annette. We've talked probably about him before. He most notably made Holy Motors, which is, I know, a Cinematary favorite. This one is his newest, I think his first since Holy Motors. And it stars Adam Driver and Marion Cotillard and Simon Helberg, who you're like, who the hell is Simon Helberg? It's not the main two people, but like the other guys in Big Bang Theory. He's one of those people. So there you go. It's Adam Driver, Marion Cotillard, and a Big Bang Theory
guy. The guy from Big Bang Theory.
Mm-hmm. That's what it should say in the title.
Not the guy that got his own spin-off.
No, not him, and guy. Not the main guy. It's like one of the other people. That was in Christmas
Vacation.
The one who was friends with the Pakistani guy.
Was it the one with the bowl cut?
Yeah. It's that guy.
Good for him.
Mm-hmm. He holds his own with with these powerful actors. Yeah. So this story, it's one of those, like, I guess I can explain it. It's very much, so like the thing it's going for is it's very much like a satire of show business, like it's very heightened. It kind of feels like it feels, so I'm about to make like a very like pitch meeting, like it's this meets this, but it's kind of like all that jazz meets Umbrellas of Cherbourg, because it's like they're singing the entire time, but it's also like this kind of breakdown of show business and like the deterioration of this person, because like the story, the main character really of the story is Henry, the Adam Driver character, who is a popular stand-up comedian, and then he is married to Anne, who's played by Marion Cotillard, and she is like this world-renowned singer. And you have a lot of these moments where it like cuts away to like these like Entertainment Tonight-esque TV segments where they're talking about how, you know, they're the perfect couple, will they or won't they, you know, they get married and they're like, oh, they're gonna have a kid, like, is their marriage happy? It's like, it's a lot of like you know, stuff you'd see on magazines at like the grocery store. Yeah, and so they have this child. I'm not even gonna describe the child because it's a choice, and I'll let people who go and see the movie experience that choice. But it, you know, like from.
Are you pro-choice?
No, I'm not kidding. No, it's not that. It's. All right, fine. So the kid is. It's not like a real child. It's like a puppet. So it's like a puppet child. And I don't know if that's a spoiler. I don't know. So I apologize if that's a spoiler. I did not know going in. I was thrown off. But it's like a puppet child. But it's not like a American Sniper like fake baby. It's like a puppet. It's more like you know, like kind of a Pinocchio type
like
thing.
Muppets,
like
Muppets?
A Pinocchio kind of thing.
Oh, like a marionette. Annette.
And like that choice becomes clearer in the movie. So I'm sure people are just like, what the hell? And I'm like, yeah, I know. I was kind of that way. I'm kind of mixed on it. Like I understand what it was going for. It has like the satire, I don't think always is incredibly, it's more, so like we're going to talk probably about like satirizing and like, smearing like, you know, the industry in part 2 when we talk about Sweet Smell of Success. And that one is it's much more pointed. Like it's like, you know, it seems like it's kind of, you know, prodding like the newspaper industry with like a knife. This one doesn't seem to be like prodding like the entertainment industry with a knife. It's more kind of it's more like just kind of mimicking and making fun of it in like a exaggerated manner. And so a lot of this movie is not like this pointed satire. It's like them acting these moments out in a very exaggerated way, so like you can recognize like what it's kind of trying to make fun of. Like a lot of people have talked about his stand-up act being very like reminiscent of somebody like Bo Burnham, where he's like this very open, very kind of self-aware, aggressive kind of person, and like, but it's never like it's never taking like point like shots at like Bo Burnham because it's like explicitly like going after him. It's more just making fun of like this broad idea of like a lot of stand-up comedians today. Like I think Bo Burnham is somebody people have mentioned it's kind of poking at. Hannah Gadsby is somebody else that they said it's kind of poking at. And so a lot of the like satire of the movie is kind of veiled behind like this over the top excessiveness. And so that's why I mention Umbrellas of Cherbourg, which is like kind of it's using that like kind of melodrama technique and like the way that movie utilizes like them singing constantly to kind of like heighten and like exaggerate every moment. And so I think that your mileage will vary with it. Like if you can hang with that and you can like ride that wavelength, I think it'll work for you. I was kind of like, again, 50-50 because it kind of goes all over the place. But for the most part, I liked it well enough. It does have a scene, if like you're into this, where Adam Driver goes down on Marion Cotillard, and they're like, it's part of like a song. So there's that, and then they have another scene where he's doing that. So if that's your thing. But it's I think it's in theaters now, and then it's being streamed by or not streamed. Yeah, well, it's being streamed. It's being distributed by Amazon, so it'll be on Amazon Prime probably later this year. So I don't know. I'll be curious to hear what other people say. This was not one that I necessarily want to talk about by myself, because I'm just kind of like, it's one that you got to kind of work through, because I feel like people will either really really like this movie, as I've seen, or like I mean, at Cannes it was getting like booed. People were booing it and calling it the worst thing ever. So
I'm sorry, I haven't. I would love to see it. I wish. I'll go watch it and then we can do this again.
We'll have to do this again. Yeah.
We'll have to do this again sometime.
Yeah. Well, you're gonna have to you're gonna take things over for a second and talk a little bit about, honestly, one of my favorites of all time,
The Apartment. Oh, it was wonderful. Jack Lemmon and Shirley MacLaine. I was starting to see this on like my Instagram timeline, because I think it's starting to stream, or like it just joined Criterion or something like that. I was just starting to see it all over, and then I scrolled by it on my Amazon Prime, and I was like, oh, I need to watch a movie. I need to do some homework, because I have something to talk about, like I was telling you earlier. I really enjoyed it. I was not expecting for it to get so kind of sad.
it's a super sad movie.
Yeah, it's super sad. I was not expecting that. I was promised a comedy of sorts, I felt, from like what I was led to believe. I was like, oh, Jack Lemmon, this will be hilarious. Shirley MacLaine, The Trouble with Harry, she's so funny. Like, I think she's so interesting. I really like watching her. And so I didn't even really know what it was about. It was about an apartment to me. Like, oh, it was something that takes place in an apartment. And I think that I was just really surprised and really touched by the end.
I know, because I mean, this question's somewhat moot, because we're going to talk about a black and white movie in the second part, but I feel like this is a movie that like people who are not actively like seeking out older movies, or like, classic movies or black and white movies, could like, because it's a very, even though it, like you mentioned, it's sad, it's also like, it has really sweet moments. It's a very romantic movie. It's a very funny movie at times. Do you, like for you, was that like, was that it being kind of like this black and white movie an impediment, or do you feel like people, like a general audience, would enjoy this?
I do, but also, like, I have a lot of experience with black and white movies myself. I have a lot of experience with them. I really enjoy them. They've never really been something that, like, stops me from, like, imagining how it all looks. But I do think that sometimes, like, black and white gives way to, like, really great, like, visuals. Like, there's The Office, and it's that, like, checker pattern of, like, just the office, like, going on for, like a warehouse, just all these office drones. And I feel like in color, I don't know if it would, like, read as well as it does. I don't know. This is just, like, the way that my brain works, but I just think it's a little more, like, interesting.
No, you're right. I mean, like, the spacing of it is much more effective. And it kind of, like, creates this, if you had color, it wouldn't have been able to create, like, this, like, it feels like it goes on forever. If it was color, it would be much more, like, finite.
Mm-hmm. And I thought that looked really interesting. It's just him, like, just walking, like, past all of these offices, these small little office spaces. I think it does a really great job of, like, also commenting on, like, the new, like, office culture, the burgeoning office culture, too. Like, they have to stagger, entrances and exits so that the elevators can handle it. But, no, to answer your first question, no, I don't think that this being black and white would be any sort of an impediment to watching it. I think that it is something that people could really enjoy. Jack Lemmon is so charming and so sweet and funny. And Shirley MacLaine, like, her character, I think she's very sharp. And that's fun to, like, watch, like, a kind of a no-nonsense, like, woman.
She's a great character in that, because, like, she's never she's always like up on she's not necessarily dishing out as many jokes as like Jack Lemmon, but she's always like, she kind of has her own agency the entire movie. You know, she's constantly able to like carry a scene without having to feel like she's like second fiddle to one of them.
Yeah, I think she's so strong. Like she's just wonderful, and he plays off her so well. He's got, you know, the cute little like kind of like puppy dog eyes at her, and I think it's really sweet. But I think it has enough you know, elements that people enjoy, like the sweet little romance. Then there's like something that kind of tugs at your heartstrings. It feels very familiar. Like, I guess like Capra-esque. Like there's that, you know, really sweet, but then there's also like something very like poignantly sad, and that endears you to, you know, these characters, and it ends happily. You know, it resolves itself very nicely and in a very intimate way. I feel like a very the movie ends with them playing Gin Rummy, like they had just played Gin Rummy after the very, I don't know how to like talk about this without like talking about spoilers. Is that like okay?
It came out in what? You're fine. No, it's fine. No, you can. I'm trying not to spoil like the newer movies. This came out a long time ago. It's fine.
Yeah, spoilers are on your own. Shirley MacLaine's character. Also, that's I'm a little all over the place. I'm trying to bring it all together. But the ending shot is them playing Gin Rummy together, which is very significant, like to their relationship, as to like how they're connected, and it's just them just playing together. It's just the two of them, like alone in the apartment. But Jack Lemmon's character, for those of you who don't know, he is a office drone that happens to have a very nice, out-of-the-way apartment that business executives take advantage of to have their affairs. Very interesting, like
well, he uses it to move up the ladder. He's like using it to like kind of curry favor.
Right, he gets to use it to move up the ladder. They get to use it to have their affairs. I scratch my back, you know, I'll scratch yours. Very that. And but yeah, that's in part 2. It's very fun. He has a fun little sense of humor about it, or there's like a fun little bit. He's trying to like move things around so he can have a date so he can have a sick day, and he has to call like 5 executives to like push them all back, and then call them all back again to confirm it. And it's just fun to kind of like go down the executive line and then right back up.
And he has those scenes where like he like because Billy Wilder, the writer director, he like will like play all of that out. Like it's not like he like cuts away. You watch him call all of them.
3 different executives 3 times, or you know, 2 times each. Like, okay, like how's this joke gonna go? And also that's another wonderful thing. Like it was Billy Wilder and Fred McNamara that got to act together, or like, you know, work together again with this after having done Double Indemnity, and Billy Wilder did Sunset Boulevard, like we were talking about, how this was also the second.
Some Like It Hot.
Tie-ins.
Some Like It Hot. Tony Curtis. It's all
Tony Curtis. It all
comes together.
Converges.
Yeah, exactly.
Very cool, but I think it is such a sweet movie, and it gets sad when Shirley MacLaine's character is revealed to like be having an affair with a higher up as well, and she realizes she's being taken advantage of. You know, he's fed the same line to everyone because he's a salesman, and she tries to kill herself. She takes a bunch of sleeping pills.
Mm-hmm. Well, she's having the affair with Jack Lemmon's boss, he's like, yeah, you can use my apartment because then I can move up even farther. And he learns the girl, the woman he has a crush on is who he's having an affair with.
It's really sad, and it's really sad the way he finds out. Like there are those 2 really those 2 moments with the broken mirror. It's very interesting. Jack Lemmon finds a compact mirror in his apartment. He gives it back to his boss, and who then gives it to Shirley MacLaine as it's hers. And he sees it again later on at an office party when he's trying to, pick her up. It's a cracked mirror. She's like, I like it better this way. It's like, oh, like that's. She doesn't know he knows at that point, but he. It's so good.
I think also with like the black and white, I think it also kind of makes it a little bit more romantic. I mean, you have like this black and white, wintry New York City, you know, in the 50s. It's very picturesque. I mean, you could like, I think again, you could like have it in color, but there's just something very romantic about having like the black and white, like downtown Manhattan, New York City in winter.
I think the like neon lights just show up that much better, and like it definitely makes me like yearn for a time I've never been to, just with the bright lights, how pretty it all looks.
Yeah, well, just it feels almost like a fan, rather than it's kind of funny because like the movie we're gonna talk about in part 2 is also in black and white, but it feels. And it also kind of feels like it's in a fantasy. Like there's a difference between, and maybe we can talk about this more in that part, but like there's a difference between like that New York and Apartment New York. Once we get into color, you have like The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, or you have Taxi Driver, and it's like you have like in color with like neon lights. It's a whole different New York that feels like much more like seedy and kind of grimy. And like even though in Sweet Smell of Success, you know, J.J. Huxinger says, like I love this dirty city. Yeah, but it doesn't feel like the people are dirty and grimy, but like the city itself doesn't necessarily feel that way as much, just because of like that the black and white kind of you kind of have like, you know, black and white lenses.
Gives it like a glow.
It feels much more like a fantasy, like, you know, it's like this kind of fantasy version of New York City rather than like what isn't actually like an actual city. But we're bridging on, you know, the other movie at this point. All right, we're gonna take a quick break, and then we will be back talking more specifically about Sweet Smell of Success after this. I say it too fast, and it just keeps going. Hello, Cinematary. This is Zach, your host, and I'm going to use this midpoint in this week's episode to let you know a little bit about what's happening on both the website and the podcast. So first off, I know for a very long time we asked you not to give us any money. Well, things have changed. We want that money. I'm just kidding. We just want like $5 a month for the rest of your life. But we're doing a Patreon, and I promise this is all in good fun. Patreon.com/cinematary. I'm sure you've heard us mention it at the end of the episode. We are doing this in order to pay for our writing that is happening on the website. We have a wonderful breadth of writers who are all giving a lot of time and effort to come up with reviews and share their thoughts on the website, and so we wanted to just give back to them in that way. And so that is why we created our Patreon page. So again, for $5 a month, you can get exclusive content from the staff. Right now we have our hit series Film Theory and Chill, which takes a piece of film theory each month and then deconstructs it in a way that makes it a little bit more accessible, and then we end that episode usually with just us rambling about whatever is on our mind at that period of time. It's for some people, I guess. But you can find that on patreon.com/cinematary. Please consider, you know, making that donation each month just to help show these writers your appreciation for what they do. Another easy way to kind of keep up with what's happening on Cinematary is signing up for our free newsletter. So if you missed an episode, if you weren't paying attention to social media and you missed maybe a review or something, or a video essay or something that we posted, this is an easy way to keep up with all of that. So each Sunday we send out a note. It goes straight to your inbox. It gives you the latest podcast episodes, you know, what's happening on the Patreon page, and the last 2 reviews that are on cinematary.com. This is a great way to keep up with what's happening, and it's a nice way if you forget to go, oh, hey, I'm not, you know, just chilling out on a Sunday. I'm having some coffee, doing Sunday things. Here, I'm going to check out what Andrew wrote about something, or what Nathan wrote about something. Just, you know, we got that stuff going. So you can find that on the website, cinematary.com. You can sign up for the newsletter. Again, it's free. And finally, the easiest way to support this show is to go on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts and give us a rating and review. You know, this is just how the algorithms work. I know every show asks you to do this, but honestly, if you could take 30 seconds to a minute and do this, it would greatly, you know, help us. I mean, this helps us just as much as, you know, signing up for the Patreon or letting people know on social media that you listen to Cinematary and you enjoy it. All of that stuff is very helpful. So So give us a rating and review on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you listen to the podcast, and share it on social media. Let people know that Cinematary is around. So again, consider donating to Patreon. That's patreon.com/Cinematary. Sign up for the free newsletter, and then give us a rating and review on your podcaster app. Well, that is way too much of me talking. You're about to hear more of me talking, so I apologize in advance, but thank you for listening, and let's get back to the show. And we're back with part 2 of episode 364 of Cinematary. In this part, we will be continuing our Young Critics Watch Old Movies series with 1957's Sweet Smell of Success. Directed by Alexander McKendrick, from a script by McKendrick, Ernest Legman, and Clifford Odets. The film stars Burt Lancaster, Tony Curtis, Susan Harrison, and Martin Milner. New York City newspaper writer J.J. Hunsaker holds considerable sway over public opinion with his Broadway column, but one thing that he can't control is his younger sister Susan, who is in a relationship with an aspiring jazz guitarist named Steve Dallas, which awesome name, by the way. Such a baller. Yes, such a baller name. Hunsaker strongly disapproves of the romance and recruits publicist Sidney Falco to find a way to split the couple, no matter how ruthless the method. The novelette on which Sweet Smell of Success was based on was first published in Cosmopolitan in 1950 under the title Tell Me About It Tomorrow. According to memos found in the MPAA PCA file on the film, the story ended with Susie Hunsaker accusing Sidney Falco of rape, after which he is murdered by columnist Harvey Hunsaker, whose name was changed to JJ, for the film. In PCA file memos dated from May of 1949, the director Joseph Breen declared the story unacceptable because of its elements of incest and marijuana. Although as late as July 1956, PCA director Jeffrey Sherlock stated that the story remained unacceptable, and a January 1957 memo suggested the inclusion of an honorable policeman to offset the negative portrayal of Police Lieutenant Harry Kello. The producers received a PCA seal for the film without making substantial changes to the original story. Writer Ernest Lehman had fictionalized his own experiences as a press agent, and the story's portrait of the beloved but ruthless columnist was recognizable to many as being based on Walter Winsell. As noted in the April 2000 Vanity Fair article, even the incident in which JJ tries to break up Susie's relationship because of Winsell's own life, in which he maneuvered the breakup of his daughter Walda, and producer William Kahn. Winchell's tremendous power in the entertainment industry, as Lehman stated in modern interviews, frightened off many studios from attempting to adapt the story into a film. Winsell began his career in the 1920s as a Broadway theater columnist whose slangy, vibrant writing set the tone for a new, less formal journalistic style. His popularity expanded with the launching of his nationwide radio program. In addition, he originated the gossip column, breaking the previous prohibition against publicizing negative facts against public personalities. Although he based his career on appealing to 1930s populism, in the 1950s, Winsell joined McCarthy-era communist hunters. This, along with his highly publicized psychological cruelty, is skewered in the character of J.J. Hunsaker. As noted in modern sources, the film solidified the columnist's reputation as a megalomaniac and began the destruction of his popularity and reputation, which were shattered by the time of his death. According to a December 2000 Los Angeles Times article, the producers considered Orson Welles to play JJ until Lancaster suggested himself for the role. Tony Curtis recounted in his autobiography that he petitioned relentlessly for the role of Sidney, eager to leave behind his swashbuckling image for more dramatic challenges. Faced with potential unemployment for the sale of Ealing Studios to the BBC in 1954, director Alexander McKendrick began entertaining offers from Hollywood. He rejected potential contracts from Cary Grant and David O. Selznick and signed with independent production company Heck, Hell, and Lancaster, enticed by their offer to adopt George Bernard Shaw's play The Devil's Disciple. After the project collapsed during pre-production, McKendrick asked to be released from his commitment, but Harold Heck refused and asked him to start work on Sweet Smell of Success. McKendrick fought with Lancaster about many elements of the story, including the ending and the interpretation of the character Steve Dallas. After the film was completed, Lancaster fired McKendrick from his previously scheduled directing duties on The Devil's Disciple. In May of 1959, the New York Times reported that the U.S. Information Agency had blocked 82 films, including Sweet Smell of Success, from being shown in 12 overseas countries for fear that the pictures were, quote, painting a false picture abroad of the United States. A preview screening of the film was poorly received, as Tony Curtis fans were expecting him to play one of his typical nice guy roles and instead were presented with the scheming Sidney Falco. Yeah, McKendrick remembered seeing audience members, quote, curling up, crossing their arms and legs, recoiling from the screen in disgust. Burt Lancaster's fans were not thrilled with their idol either, quote, finding the film too static and talky. The film was a box office failure, and Heck blamed his producing partner Hill. Quote, the night of the preview, Harold said to me, you know, you've wrecked our company. We're going to lose over $1 million on this picture. According to Lehman, Lancaster blamed him, claiming that, quote, Burt threatened me at a party after the preview. He said, you didn't have to leave. You could have made this a much better picture. I ought to beat you up. I said, go ahead. I could use the money. In 1957, the New York Times said, a viewer cannot blame Hunsaker too much when he happily exclaims, I love this dirty old town. It's harder, of course, to fall for the characters in Sweet Smell of Success. They are mighty interesting, but rarely lovable. So on that note, let's talk a little bit about the movie. So Grace, what's your history with this film? How familiar are you with it?
Well, this will be my second watch through. I had seen it once before last year, actually during quarantine. I got a DVD as a gift, and we watched it and we really enjoyed it, but I don't think that I fully took in what I was watching, because the second time around I picked up on a lot more. I really just the first time was like, this is cool. I'm having fun. And I think my biggest takeaway from my first watch of it was the soundtrack. That really stuck with me. It's very loud. And I feel like it's really well scored, extremely memorable.
For those who don't know, you have that Chico Hamilton jazz band that's just kind of playing the entire time.
Mm-hmm. And the horns, there's that reoccurring theme of these loud horns, and
Elmer Bernstein, the Elmer Bernstein orchestra work, yeah.
And it's thank you, and it's wonderful. And I really enjoy movie soundtracks. I like to listen to those in the car and sometimes. And I was playing that, and it felt very dramatic, pulling into the parking lot at the bar, blasting this music. But my second watch, I felt like I really picked up on what was going on. I felt a little clueless my first watch. I wasn't really sure what I was watching, but I knew what I was listening to, and I knew I liked it.
Yeah, I'll honestly, I'm kind of the same way as you. This is my second time watching it as well, and I think I was kind of fading in and out, not because I was bored, but just because it's an interesting movie because there's so much stuff happening, but it's not like you could classify it as like an action movie or like a thriller, but there's no action ever happening. Like it's not like anything, like it's not like anybody's like gonna get shot. I mean, you have the part late in the film where she might jump off the railing, but like, you know, it's not like anybody's gonna get shot or killed or anything like that. It's just you're like hanging. Yeah, you're kind of hanging there though on like the banter and the shitty stuff they're doing to one another and like that chain of events. And so, yeah, it's so like I think it was a little bit, at least for me, it was tough, like kind of sitting there deeply engaged in it the first time, because you kind of have to get on that wavelength, because it's not uninteresting, but like again, there's nothing, like there's no action happening. It's just it's people talking, you know, to one another and being assholes in that room.
Plots and its schemes, and I think a really nice way to like sum that up is like when Susie said something to JJ, she's like, oh, is it a 10-minute tap dance or whatever, and he's like, oh, you're picking up on my lingo. I felt like she's like, I read your column every day. So I was like, oh, you've kind of got to get like, you kind of have to pick up on it, because the lingo of this movie is so sharp. Clifford Odets, who adapted like the short story and like wrote the screenplay for this. I mean, he writes these really sharp lines that, cat's in the bag and the bag's in the river. I wouldn't take a bite out of you. You're a cookie full of arsenic. Like, they're really sharp, and he's wonderful. I think I've only read one of his plays, and it's Waiting for Lefty, and it's, from his public works era, and it's great, and his Depression era, and it's really sharp, and I think he's just wonderful, and it was really fun to watch. It's really fun to listen to. There's a cadence, there's a music to it.
There's a cadence. You're talking about like the music, and the music, the Elmer Bernstein score is great, and like the Chico Hamilton like jazz is great. But then you also have like like this cadence of the speech, because like the first time you meet J.J. Hunsaker, that whole kind of sequence where him and Sidney Falco are like walking around, like it's just like they're batting off one another, and he's batting off the other people. Like the first time you meet him, it's that whole dance with him, and you have the senator and the performer and the performer's agent, and like there's just kind of and Sidney's there too, and you kind of just have like this. Like it's very much like a chess match, and they're playing chess against each other, but it's all with words and information. Like it's all about like trading information and kind of one-upping. Yeah, and like one-upping one another with, well, you may know this, but I know this. Yeah, and so that's the action, and so I feel like that's the kind of. It's you kind of have to like get on that wavelength to kind of enjoy this.
Yeah, I feel like you also have to kind of know like what kind of information they're really like dealing with back and forth, because like if you're not really familiar with like what is happening at this time, like it's a Broadway gossip tabloid, and then like what is gossip to them, like we have TMZ, like. So the marijuana accusations with musicians having a baby out of wedlock, stuff like that.
They call him a communist.
Yeah, being a communist, because this also naming names, blind items, like it's McCarthyism, and so.
And unfortunately, Charles Odette is very familiar with naming names.
Sure did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Po body's perfect.
No, but you're true, and it's kind of like, to me, so like as somebody who works in news and at a newspaper, it's interesting to me like rewatching this, like looking at the power that JJ has in terms of, like, I mean, he's just like this holder of information. Like, again, like he doesn't have a gun, he doesn't have a weapon. His weapon is just how, like, the information that he carries and like how he can utilize it. And it's interesting to me to kind of look at that today, because I don't necessarily think there's really an equivalent of that today. Because you think about it, in 1957, there's not many forms of information. I mean, you have like you have newspapers, you have radio, you have kind of the onset of TV, and those are the three places where you're getting your information from. Those, I mean, that's like anything else that is not existent. You don't have social media. You don't have even other ways to be getting I mean, other than like a library, you don't have any other ways of getting. You're trusting those sources to tell you what's going on, and so like he is able to kind of hold that power because of that, because he's in this powerful newspaper, he's in this powerful position, he can kind of hold that over people, and it's interesting to see that like today, because I don't think that's that's a role that somebody can have today. You know, I don't think anybody holds that much power just with their column or with their writing. You know, I think because of
we've seen it definitely. I mean, like, you know, these personalities that like make or break like what we talk about, but not really like, you know, everybody talks about like Ellen, everybody talked about Oprah, like they were talk show hosts, but like I don't think they had the same influence.
No, because I think in terms of like, I mean, you think of just like swaying, so it's like swaying public opinion. I think that it's not, you don't have like, in this movie, what it's telling you is you have this one person who sways public opinion. Like if JJ's the only Instagram influencer in 1957. It's just him. But like here, I think you have, like I said, you have people on Instagram, you have people on Twitter, you have people on Facebook, you have people on TikTok, you have people like there's, it's so segmented and just disparate of like all the different people who are like dictating culture that like it's kind of interesting to watch this today, because you think about that and you're like, yeah, like now that's not possible. Like, and you also wouldn't entrust, like in terms of like imaging, like you think of like the people, how they're trying to kind of capture their image in this movie, and you're like, yeah, that wouldn't, that they you know, people, celebrities now are much more like, the whole thing is to be like more open so that you're more of like a real person. It's just such a, I'm not, it was more just kind of like interesting to see how the machine worked, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, so with that being said, like that's why the first watch, I don't think I got as much out of it as I did the second watch, because then I was more aware of like what I was listening to, what they're talking about, like what it is that these like plots and schemes are. Like that was the hardest thing for me to like map out my first time, that I was a little confused after my watch.
What are they talking about?
What are they talking about? What's going on? Like, what is this big problem? Like, why is JJ being this way? Why is Sydney so desperate? And I was able to pick up more on like why he's so desperate. But also I really like Sydney. Like, I think out of the two of them, I like Sydney. I'm not saying that he's like a super great person and wonderful, but like, I don't know, I kind of do like how consistent I feel he is.
Well, it shows you just like they're kind of two sides. I mean, that's the whole thing, is like they're two sides of the same coin. Like Sydney is somebody who is willing to like do whatever needs to be done in order to get this information where it needs to be, and JJ is kind of like the conduit of that. And like you learn a lot about Sydney, not just from how he acts, but like from how other people kind of react to him, because a lot of the movie also is him like interacting with other smaller columnists, and like you have the one who is just like completely dismissive of him, and he's like trying to like get in through his wife, and he's just like, you know, that guy's just completely angry with him. And then you have the other one who, in order to get to get the thing that he needs written in the column, he you know, cons his friend to sleep with him, or to sleep with this guy. And like he's such a slimy grifter, and like Tony Curtis like plays the grifter so well, because like I can see why people would be upset seeing him in this, because, you know, you're used to seeing him as like this much more dashing hero, like, you know, whether it's like like him just being like pretty and Spartacus or something like that, you know, like he's much more of like a prototypical hero. And in this one, he has the like charisma of a prototypical hero, but he's doing it for all the wrong reasons, you know.
The best of everything is good enough for me. It's like Sydney is a man that wants more than what he has. He has like he's made these huge plans for his future, and he's not there at all. It's like, I already know what I'm gonna buy when I win the lottery. It's like, but you haven't won the lottery yet. Like he's very, very much like a dreamer and a schemer. And like, should we talk about like the plot at all? I don't really.
Yeah, so for those who you know, I've never seen the movie, the plot of it kind of again is, so JJ's sister is dating this guy Steve Dallas who JJ just doesn't like, and so he hires Sydney to be a slimy grifter and break them up. And so the way that he does it is he plants the story that Steve was found with marijuana and was a communist and all this other stuff and it ends up getting him fired. And so as the story goes along, like, Steve gets his job back and kind of starts to fight back against JJ and Sydney. And by the end,
because he thinks that they're the ones that planted the story as their publicist and columnist.
Yeah, and by the end, like, JJ's lost his he hasn't necessarily like lost his credibility, but he's like lost his sister, which was kind of his only connection to the real world, because everything else he's just connected to that information, and like he's very tunnel vision with like this job. You watch him as he kind of like moves around the movie, and he knows everybody, and whenever he's talking to people, it's not really like a real conversation. It's like it starts as a real conversation, and then it veers into, he like drops this line that shows, I know this thing about you. You better watch yourself.
You're only as good as like your next big scandal to me. Like, you actually don't matter as a person. And Susie was like the only person that mattered to him, but I don't really think he saw her as a person. It's a thing to him to have. Like, she's a item in his house. Like, but she was the only thing that really mattered to him outside of his fame and success. And so she resents him, and she tries to kill herself by throwing herself off a balcony. Tony Curtis, Sydney stops her from throwing herself off the balcony, but the implication there is that she is in a nightgown and he is a sweaty, handsome man. And
also it's like, for all the work that he's done and everything that he's like done to like perform this job, at the end of the day he's expendable. And so that's kind of the tragedy of that whole last scene, is he just finds out how expendable he is. Like, he's like constantly working to at least like, not necessarily like, but he clearly wants to either overtake or like get in this realm where JJ's at, and he screws up, and then he becomes expendable and gets arrested,
beat up pretty badly. And that's why I said, when you're like, oh, nobody dies, I was like, well, like, is he?
I don't think he's dead. I think he's just beat up.
Really? Because Kello, the police inspector, they said that he like hit that kid too hard. So it's like, what happened to the kid? Like, is he just, Iron Fist, and he like knocked him into a coma or something? Like, I don't know. For me, I felt like it was a little more open-ended, because they like drag him off to the darkness. So I was like, oh, they're gonna just beat the living daylights out of him.
No, I don't think he's dead. I think he's just incredibly beat up and is going to jail for as long as JJ would like him there. Which again, and I think it's the sadness in that last scene is just, I don't know, like, it's not even sadness. You just kind of have like this empty feeling by the end of it, because you have Susie is walking off kind of, into the lights.
Yeah.
To kind of, because she's
dark and
like she's just kind of escaping everything, and then JJ has he's lost his connection to the world, and is now like everything he is like tied to this column and this job now, like, no matter and then you have Tony Curtis, who has realized that he's just kind of a pawn and an expendable one at that, and is now like beat up and probably going to jail. And so it's like, I don't know how you felt at the end, but it's just kind of like this. It's not like I'm sad or melancholy. It's just like this emptiness, it's just like, oh, like it just so shows how like empty all of these pursuits are, like Sydney like try to accomplish all this so he could get to this level, and JJ is like this powerful voice, and at the end of the day, they're just empty.
Yeah, like JJ just like looking out over his balcony, and there just doesn't seem to be like the same like life. Like, out. There seemed to be like there's one scene where he's like looking out over his balcony. There's like there's nightlife. There's the city. Like that's his world, and he presides over it. And then I felt like kind of at the end where he's just sort of looking out, like it's not the same. It doesn't have the same effect to it. And he's like, and I think it's that he's like watching Susie walk away, like he can see her like walk away, and it's like I absolutely agree with you, like there she goes, like that's it.
And also, but I think also to your point that he's like the city, like it, like whenever he had everything he wanted, he could kind of look at this as like his domain. It kind of was like a little Lion King, like everything, like this is mine. And now, like I think it's just like now he looks at it, it's just like less. I don't know. There's like it's less appealing. Like it now, instead of it being like this thing that you've gained, it's like this is all you're left with. And it's an empty, vapid,
and there's
terrible city.
I definitely see that, and I definitely agree. Like there is that empty feeling at the end of it. Also, it's sort of that's sort of like the moment where I was like, like I let out a breath. Like it's like, oh gosh, okay, like we're done. Like it felt very fast because it's over the course of 2 days. Like the timeline is, am I right? Like 2 days?
Yeah.
Yeah, like. It was fast paced. Like, how do these people have any time? Like the nightlife, I didn't know nights could be so long. I didn't know there were so many hours in the day that they can have. That he's telling Rita, the cigarette girl. Which, by the way, I would love to be a cigarette girl. I think I'd be a fantastic cigarette girl.
Rita gets a raw deal.
Huh?
Rita gets a raw deal.
I think she does too, and I think she's wonderful. Like, I think that she, out of all of them, is the purest of them all. Bless her.
She just wants to hook, be like, Tony Curtis, hook up with me, man.
I want to be put in the tropical island mood. Like, can someone please get this girl a Mai Tai? I think she's so sweet, and how is Sydney making these plans? Like, let's have a date at 2:30. I'm like,
can you be there at 2:30? Let me check my schedule.
And she's like, of course. No problem. It's like, what?
Do I get to go and like I'll meet you at 2? Like, am I gonna get to have sex with Tony Curtis? Like, I'll be there at 2:30.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, she's kind of like, Sydney, do you still keep your key under the mat? Like, she's kind of hinting at it, like she wants to be with him. I think that she sees like something in him as like a in like sort of a provider way, like. Because, she's like a lowly cigarette girl, and she said something about how someone's in military school. Like, I think she's trying to, like, provide.
She's a kid.
Yeah, she's got a kid, and she's, like, trying to provide. And then it's like, here's Sydney. He's handsome, and he listens to her as far as she knows, like, as far as she's aware. And, he's a nice person. He has a good job. He's a big city publicist, like, to the stars. Like, I'm sure that just seems like, oh, he's a millionaire to her. And, bless her heart for, like, letting him take it, like she lets him take advantage of her. She's like, okay, fine, like I'll do it. Yeah. But she's not happy about it. And she was also really funny, like watching her kick off her shoes.
Well, like I just love her face, like whenever he shows up, and she like kind of like the way she just slinks out, when, like because like the shot, like she opens the door and Tony Curtis is right there, and then that guy just kind of comes into frame, and like the way that she's like slinks back, and it's just like, oh.
No, he goes when she comes back out, and he asks her like, how do I know you? And he like names the place, and she goes, like she just shakes her head like, really, like that's cute, like that's. Like, that to me is like...
She's just so like, I don't want to be... Like, this all sucks. I don't like any of this.
I don't want this. And it just seems so cute to me. Like, that's like a great way to like characterize this kind of like ditzy sweetheart, the cigarette girl. Like...
Well, it's like... And she... it's also like that she... She only does it because she's doing it for Sydney, like, and that's the tragedy of like that whole transaction is that I think if it was up to her, she'd be like, no, I'm getting the hell out of here. See you later. But she loves that. She loves him so much. She's like, yeah, I'll do this for you.
You know who else loves him? Like, he's got himself like a nice little following of like these poor sweet girls. His little secretary.
Yeah.
I've almost like completely forgotten about her. No offense to her. She's largely forgettable, I feel. Like, she's just very small, and he's so mean to her. And then she's still like bring your top coat because it's cold outside. Like, there's that caring, like, I care about you, like, and he's so mean to these women. He's a slime ball through and through.
He's not a nice guy.
He's not a nice guy.
He's not a nice guy.
He's like, no, I am red flags. I am red flags, girls. Like, I'm handsome, but I'm mean, and I kind of respect that. Also, I really, he's so poor. How, like, I think Tony Curtis does a really nice job of sort of like, portraying this sort of like, I'm really down on my luck, but I'm also like, I'm drinking. I'm just down right now, but I'll be okay. Just give me like that one break and I'll be fine. One break. Like, no, I'm not going to take my top coat and leave a tip in every bar in town. Stay here, taxi. I don't know if I can afford to hail another one. His Sidney Falco publicist taped on to the door. Like, that gave me a very, like, month-to-month feeling, like...
Well, and like, he opens the door and, like, his bedroom's right there.
Yeah! Oh, it's so good.
We've talked about Tony Curtis. I mean, what do you make of Burt Lancaster as J.J. Hunsaker?
I hate him. It's so good. So good, but just the entire time I'm like, I don't know why I hate him more than Sydney. I think maybe it's because I just like feel bad for Sydney, because I think in Sydney's mind he's like, I'm doing what I have to do to like get to where I want, and then I just feel like JJ is like, I'm already here and I'm the worst.
He's very like, he has like that like lean back confidence where like you're not gonna like, that's what's so great about the scene when Steve comes and just kind of lays into him, because it like knocks him off a little bit, because like for the beginning, for the most of the movie, he's just like leaning back and like you can tell he's not exerting that much energy. He's just tearing these people down, and it's fucking nothing to him. It's just like,
it's easy. I'm smarter than you and I know it, and then he's never really had anybody kind of like push back on him. And I do think that like surprised him, and that I feel like that definitely like knocked my balance a little bit.
Yeah, and I love Burt Lancaster.
He's enormous.
Yeah, well, Burt Lancaster, he like has like this like linebacker body. Like, he's just very like huge. He just has like this kind of, he has like a different cool to him than Tony Curtis. Like, he just kind of has like this much more like it's almost like this Letterman cool to him, where he just like, I don't know, he feels like a 50s.
It's a coldness to me.
Well, just like especially in this character, he kind of has like just this, you can feel like immediately sense the emptiness. Like, all he has is like, that's why he's like up front just kind of doing this breezy, I'm cooler, because he has nothing else to offer. It's just like, that's all I've got. I've got my information, and I've got, the respect that people are going to pay me.
Yeah, this is just like something, that coolness, that confidence, like when we see, so he doesn't show up until like the first like 20 minutes. It's just talk about him. I was reading, and I'll show you that later in the booklet that I have, that this was like also like largely inspired by The Great Gatsby, how he's Gatsby-esque. He's just talked about until he's like you finally see him, you finally meet him, you don't realize, but I was just I've got my cats in the other room. Like, I shut the door so they wouldn't come up.
They like to join.
I didn't realize that JJ was sitting at a table with other people. Like, it just seemed like he was there by himself, and I don't know if that's like a framing or something, but there
it frames it, because you meet it, because Tony Curtis comes from behind, remember? And it's framed where you have that phone like the phone's right there on the camera, and he's just sitting there like writing something. So yeah, no, you don't think, and then it pans, it turns
and
around.
And there's 3 other people there, and it's like, no, you don't exist. You're not here. You mean nothing to me. And I think that is like, I think that Lancaster like plays out really well. That it's all me. I think that I've not seen him in too much, I'll be honest. That's my own failing, but seeing this, I'm like, okay, this guy's really, a heavy hitter, and he plays asshole so well. Like, I hated him. He's so mean. He's horrible to his sister, so controlling. That fur coat, like it's some sort of it's the security blanket, like a straitjacket that he like wraps her up in. You're being hysterical. Put on your coat. Like, let me wrap you up. Like, talking to Steve Dallas. When was the last time you bought her a fur coat? Like, these material things to like shower people in and like use them as a way to like control them. Again, it's like, what can I do? Like, how can I control and manipulate you? He's calculating. Like, he's so good. He's so good, but I hate him.
You mentioned this will be more of for the YouTube people, the people watching on video, but we'll have to show what did you learn from your Criterion book? Let's see your Criterion book and everything.
Sure. Okay, so
show and tell.
This is the DVD. This is my, and I learned a lot. I felt very lucky. So here's this nice little like sort of a gazette. The Eyes of Broadway, again, that Gatsby, like the eyes of Dr. T.J. Eichelberg with the glasses and everything. Like, he sees all, knows all. He's a god. But it's got a couple really great things. So it talks about, it'll give you like the, breakdown, the scene-by-scene breakdown, cast and crew. And then it's got this like really great like introduction by Gary Giddens, and he talks about like all the different like intersections and crossroads that this movie that just align perfectly to make this movie. It's Broadway, it's Hollywood, it's newspaper, it's a noir. There's comments about McCarthyism. There's like it's all here. And how everything just like hits right at this moment, to like lightning in a bottle to make this. And it was a really compelling read. And then it's got 2 of the short stories that like the making of Sidney Falco and J.J. Hunsaker. I only read one of them. It's more of a Sidney. It's more about him, and I guess that's maybe also why I really like him, because we get to hear more of like what he's thinking, and you listen to JJ just drone on about, I'm so great, I'm so wonderful, I think that maybe I'll go into politics, I'm the smartest person anybody's ever met, everybody loves me, everybody just worships at my altar. And you just hear Sidney like, he's not really listening, it's in one ear and it's out the other. And it also kind of like humanizes him, because like this poor man is like sold his soul to the devil, and he has to be the devil's little like security blanket. It kind of also shows like how badly like JJ needs a yes man like Falco to like do this bidding. Yeah. Because like he can't do it himself. He would never. Like, it makes him seem like he's all talk, but he's really good. And then it's.
Well, it goes back to kind of like the whole information loop, because you think about like today, like that's almost a road. Like today you wouldn't have the JJ character. That person would be on Twitter just ranting, just putting shit, and like that. And that's what's kind of interesting about like the way this worked, because like there's goods and bads, at least in my opinion, like about social media, but I think that I think that people characterize it as like the worst thing ever, and there's times when it kind of is, but at the same time, like for good or for bad, it's like pure democracy to a degree. Like it's just anybody can kind of go in there and say what they want. Again, like it can be really good or it can be like awful. But it's pure democracy. It's like that's what you want. Like anybody can say, and like it's compared to something like this period of time where, not everybody got to say anything. A lot of people didn't have voices. Literally, like this movie showing is the only voice is JJ. Like he's the only voice. Nobody, and so, like. I don't know. To me, I was thinking about like what's worse. Like then when you could count on one hand the amount of voices that were like telling you about the world and about America and about what to think, or is it like this chorus? This like infinity. This infinitely long chorus of voices, and I'm like, I think both have their problems, but there's something about like the gatekeepery of like only these 5 people get to talk that seem like, I don't know, like it almost makes me sigh.
We trust only these 5 people, like they.
Yeah, like that, like something about that kind of like rubs me the wrong way. Like even though I don't love social media, I'm like, at least like other people have the ability to speak, even if you know it's like a QAnon person. Like, I don't love that, but I mean, that's pure democracy.
Like, I feel like if I were to like comment on something like JJ said, I'd be like, source, and then he's like, me, and then meanwhile, you comment source, and it's like, here's all these different links, like here's all of this, go read about it.
Yeah, it's just like, I don't know, like I understand why. I'm fully aware of like why, like the what's terrible about social media. Like, yeah, because then some crazy uninformed QAnon person can go on some rant and be like, oh, well, this is how, and they can run with that, and people will like latch onto that, and you're like, that's awful, and you're like, yeah, but also there were those people in the 1950s who were newspaper writers who they were the only voice. You have people like in Hollywood, like Luella Parsons, or Hedda Hopper, who were like saying stuff about, we're doing exactly this. They were calling people communists. They were like putting, killing people's careers because they were the only voice in town. And so it's like, I don't know, like for every crazy QAnon person that does shitty things and is like, it's just the bane of humanity on Twitter, you also have these really smart people who are like engaging with ideas and like doing, people on TikTok who are like engaging with the cool ideas and like actually thinking about stuff. And I don't think you necessarily had that like trade-off, in the 50s with newspapers. It was there were good voices, yes, but it was like those were the only people who could talk. That was it. That's the end of my rant. Anything else from your Criterion book that we need to?
Then there was like a little bit of like, Lehman talking about Odette's and how great he was, and then a little bit about Mac and Drake.
Yeah, I think he also did not get along with Burt Lancaster. He got fired.
Yeah.
I say he didn't get along. He got fired. So
yeah, like they were like, no. They apparently, what I was reading, like from, it was saying that like Lehman felt like he was like cheated out of it. They like kind of pressured him into it. He was like, oh, these guys are really like doing things, I should sign on. And then they signed him on, and they're like, nope, you're out. Like, we just really wanted the rights to this. And then he like developed a sick tummy and then had to go vacation for like 2 years outside the U.S. Don't you just love that? Like, I wish I could do that. Like,
just be like, oh, I got a sick tummy, I'm gonna go to like Ireland for
they're like, you need
2 years.
To rest. You have to go somewhere to rest. And then it's like, that means like, uprooting your life for like 6 months. Like, oh, I feel so much better. My sabbatical, I've rested.
Yeah, I would feel amazing too if I...
No, but that's really it. The special features, like on the DVD, had 2 little documentaries about Mac and Drake and about James Hong, who was the...
Yeah, James Hong, the cinematographer.
And about like how just wonderful he was, and especially him being a Chinese American, and the work that he did. And then it also talks about Walter Winchell Winsell as a character that this sprung from. But that was really it from this nice physical DVD, my physical media. I got to add it to my physical media collection.
There you go. Criterion, you're also welcome to sponsor us.
Yeah, please. Oh, wait. There we go.
Criterion Collection.
Sponsor us.
Sponsor of Cinematary. I don't know. I figure if you just say it enough, like, it'll eventually happen.
Like, it'll pop up.
Yeah. Any final thoughts on the movie? Just kind of like as a last recommendation to people?
Yes. Just back with like the dialogue, there's just like 2 things that I think are planted so well that it's just like so like zingy, that just like scream like fun banter. It's like I don't think we ever get like dialogue. We don't have dialogue like this anymore. I feel they don't make them like they used to. You know, to use to trot out some cliche. But there were just like two big things that I noticed with my second rewatch. It was Sydney and cars and like the Hunsuckers getting into cars. There's a scene where like he finishes talking to JJ after we're first introduced to JJ. Like he calls his car out, and the exhaust from the car like burns Sydney's leg. And then later on, when he's chasing after Susie to like beat her to the taxi, he like just gets it, but like she closes the door on his fingers. So it's like the Hunsuckers and Sydney, like a painful relationship, one where he's gonna get hurt by them. Like he's just caught up in it. And I do think that that's like echoed again when Susie says to JJ, like, you're going down with me, like, you know, she's like, I'm going to commit suicide, you're going to go down with me. They're very cruel, but also I really like the line where we first meet JJ and he's just been like ping-ponging back and forth with the group of three, and he's like using Sydney's face as the paddle and the ball, like just beating him in front of these people. And he says to Sydney, match me, you know, he's got the cigarette, and then, you know, Sydney says, not yet, like, not now, as his own way of, like, trying to fight back. But then, like, later on, when they have their conversation, like, just before they're about to meet Steve Dallas to, like, kind of poke him, Sydney says, I know this kid, he's a pocket full of fireworks, just waiting for a match. And then he, like, pulls out, like, his letter, and he's like, match me. Like, so good. Like, you know, those are things that, like, first watch, you're not really looking for, like, these... You're not really looking for these things. You're just...
Well, it's built on a lot of motifs. You know, it's like, it's a lot of setups and then payoffs, you know.
I love it.
And,
I love it. And those are two things that, like, I didn't notice the first time that, like, just made me all the more, like, like, edge of my seat, that thriller like you were talking about earlier. But I really loved those. I noticed them. I was like, oh my gosh, like, I've got to say something about these. Like, I hope other people see this. I hope people are, like, looking for this, and that the payoff is just as, like, satisfying as it was, like, to me, because I was like...
No, it's so built up with, like, motifs, and it's constantly kind of, like, setting you up and then, you know, bringing it back around, like, later, you know... Later, not even like later in the movie, just like, you know, a couple scenes later. It's the movie is constantly doing that. No, I agree. I don't think movies do that as well today, or at least it's not as like naturally worked in. You know, it almost becomes more of like a MacGuffin, or it's like an Easter egg that's like pointing to not even something that like was set up earlier. It was like, you know, I think of like a Marvel movie where it's like they'll make a reference to something that was like 4 movies before, and you're like, oh, I remember when Captain America, you know, farted or whatever. Yeah, I get that.
But like, I feel like wasn't Space Jam just like you were saying earlier? It's just like a bunch of like, it's just references.
It's just references.
It's just references. Like, I feel like,
yeah, it's not clever. It's more just going like, you know, do you remember this movie or you remember this show? And you're like, yeah, I mean, that's
from the past, nostalgia.
Yeah.
Like,
you're like, I get it, but it's not like clever, like a motif. Like it's a setup, and then it's gonna pay off and still work within the plot and like the narrative device.
We're smart enough. We can handle that. Like, and it feels so good. Like, I felt so smart. I felt so like a part of that world.
You had your long cigarette, and you're like,
yeah, so yeah. I was in there. Like, I'm learning the lingo. I read your column. Like, it's so good. Yeah. Really, second watch, I felt like I was able to really unlock the true power of this movie. Yeah. First time I watched it, I was like, cool, I saw a Criterion Collection movie. Like I'm a film buff. Now I'm the cinema enjoyer. Like,
now I'm a cinema enjoyer. Used to be a film buff. Now I'm a cinema enjoyer.
The cinema enjoyer.
And then you'll get to the final level, which is just I like me some movies.
I like me some movies.
No, I recommend this one. If people have not seen it, I think it's a little underrated. I don't think it kind of like it's you know, it has the Criterion treatment and stuff, but I don't think it ever really gets like tossed in with like, even with like newspaper movies. Like I would classify this as a really good newspaper movie, with
Yeah,
you know, in the
definitely.
same realm as like Citizen Kane or Front Page or His Girl Friday. Like I would classify it in those, or you know, even more modern ones like you know.
Did you feel
Like-
like there was like a little reference to Citizen Kane in that, like the shot like up from above looking at JJ on the stage, like in Citizen Kane where they're like shooting up on the, I don't know.
It probably was. It probably.
I've seen Citizen Kane for those watching. Like, I'm really smart. I know movies.
Well, we can make that the Cinematary fun fact. Grace has seen Citizen Kane. We'll make that a Cinematary. Oops, not. Here we go.
Fun fact, I have seen it.
But yeah, no. If you've not seen it, Sweet Smell of Success, check it out. I think it's worth your time. Well, that will wrap up this episode of Cinematary. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Cinematary, on Twitter and Instagram at handle @Cinematary, and on Letterboxd at letterboxd.com/Cinematary, where we post all the movies that we talked about in this episode. Check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/Cinematary. Thank you so much to our patrons: Cam, Chad Newsom, Christina Daughtry, Corey Willingham, Harry Eskin, Candace Sisson, Ron Hayes, Tyler Chandler, and Whitney Rio Ross. Thank you so much for your patronage. Next week, we're going to be continuing our Young Critics Watch Old Movies series with 1954's Godzilla. So we're going to get a nice, another little social satire with a side of some destruction. So check us out next week. Thank you guys for listening. We'll see you then.